As you may remember, in 1937, Amelia Earhart set out to become the first woman to fly around the world. But on July 2nd of that year, she disappeared somewhere over the Pacific Ocean.
And ever since then, people have been trying to figure out what happened to her. Well, now scientists are tantalizingly close to finally solving the mystery.
Amelia was born on July 24, 1897. Her parents were Samuel Edwin Stanton Earhart and Amelia Amy Otis Earhart. She was born in Atchison, Kansas. Earhart was named, according to family customs, after her two grandmothers. A spirit of adventure seemed to abide in the Earhart children, with Amelia and her sister Muriel setting off daily to explore the neighborhood. In 1904, with the help of her uncle, she cobbled together a homemade ramp-fashioned roller coaster. Amelia secured that ramp to the roof of the family tool shed. Earhart's well-documented first flight ended dramatically. She emerged from the broken box with a bruised lip and a torn dress. She explained to her sister, "It's just like flying." When Amelia was a kid, she traveled a lot due to her father's job as a railroad attorney. She attended many different schools, so at the age of 18, Amelia felt compelled to leave school. Taking a course in the Red Cross First Aid, Amelia enlisted as a nurse's aide at Dina Military Hospital in Toronto, Canada, tending to wounded soldiers during World War I. The following year, Amelia went back to school. She enrolled as a pre-medical student at Columbia University in New York. Amelia only had a short time there because her parents insisted she move back to California where they were living. When Amelia moved back to California, she started to learn to fly. She took up aviation as a hobby. In 1922, with the financial help of her sister and her mother, Amelia purchased her first airplane, a Kinner Airster. Following her parents' divorce, Amelia moved back to the East Coast where she was employed as a social worker in the Dennison House in Boston, Massachusetts. It was there she was selected to be the first female passenger on a transatlantic flight in 1928.
In 1928, she was invited to be the first female to fly across the Atlantic, but only as a passenger. With pilot Bill Stultz and mechanic Louis E. Gordon, Earhart landed in the United Kingdom on June 17, 1928. Amelia was an instant sensation.
I think she was somewhat embarrassed by the attention she got because, as she knew, she had done nothing on this flight. She was just a passenger. She kept the log, but she really referred to herself as a sack of potatoes.
It was on this flight where she kept in contact with George Palmer Putnam. He would later be her husband and publisher. George saw Amelia's flight as a best-selling story for his publishing house. In 1931, Amelia and George got married, but she continued her aviation career under her maiden name. Amelia and George formed a successful partnership. George organized Amelia's flights and public appearances, and arranged a line of flight luggage and sport clothes.
After the flight, promoter George P. Putnam began managing Amelia's career.
It's very difficult to describe G.P. Putnam. He was flamboyant, he was handsome, he could be charming. When he lost his temper, his language was incredibly evil.
Putnam began heavily promoting Earhart's career with lecture tours and product endorsements.
People criticized GP for pushing Amelia too hard. Number one, I think she was a willing participant in this. And number two, she really had to do it. That was the way that you would raise the money for these flights.
Though their relationship started out strictly professional, they would eventually marry in 1931.
After a series of record-making flights, she became the first woman to make a solo transatlantic flight in 1932. That same year, Amelia developed flying clothes for the 1990s. Her first creation was a flying suit with loose trousers, a zipper top, and big pockets. Vogue advertised her clothing line with a 2-page photo spread. Amelia dressed according to occasions, whether it was flying or an elegant affair. Several New York garment manufacturers made an exclusive Amelia Earhart line of clothing, which were marketed in 30 cities, with one exclusive store in each city, such as Macy's in New York. Amelia made great strides in opening the new field of aviation to women. In 1935, Amelia became the first person to fly from Hawaii to the American mainland. By doing so, Amelia became not only the first person to solo anywhere in the Pacific, but also the first person to solo both in the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. In June 1937, Amelia embarked on the first around-the-world flight at the equator. On July 2nd, after completing nearly two-thirds of her historical flight, over 22,000 miles, Amelia vanished along with her navigator, Frederick Noonan.
And navigator Fred Noonan took off from Oakland, California on June 1st, 1937, and made it 22,000 miles to Lae, New Guinea.
On Earhart's last flight, having started out with ill health, fatigue, on the way along the flight, she would fly an average very often of 10 to 12 hours a day. So by the time she got to Lae, she was a wreck.
The next leg to Howland Island was problematic. Overcast skies hindered celestial navigation, and it was discovered later they were using inaccurate maps. At 8:43 a.m. on July 3rd, U.S. Coast Guard vessel Ithaca received the last communication from Earhart and launched an immediate search. However, the plane was never found.
It's not the mystery of her disappearance that we want to stress. To her, flying was such a wonderful experience, and she wanted it to be safe. She wanted people to enjoy it as she did.